Okay, everybody. So last class, you should have taken this using context clues quiz, which if you notice in the top left corner, it says you do. Any worksheet that says you do, think of that as a quiz. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the answers to these. I'll read each passage and kind of tell you how I found that answer. So just in case maybe you struggled on a few, you can kind of see where you went wrong and what you should have been looking for. So here we go. In 1773, the British Parliament enacted the Tea Act, which would have given the East India Company a monopoly on the American colony's tea market. The act was meant to enable the British company to sell its tea more cheaply than any competitors could. The American colonists feared that this special advantage would result in the company's singular control of tea sales. Before the act, the company had to pay taxes when the tea arrived in England from India, and then additional tariffs when the tea reached America. The Tea Act allowed the East India Company to sell tea directly to the colonies without the initial taxes in England. From the American colonist point of view, the British Parliament was effectively putting a tax on tea sold by companies other than the East India Company. Okay, so we actually have two questions related to this paragraph. And notice that the two words in bold are monopoly and tariffs. Maybe you already know what both of those are, but if not, we're going to work on using context clues, which are those clues throughout the paragraph that a lot of times will tell you what those meanings actually mean. So, what's the meaning of the word monopoly? So, first off, what I like to do is look at typically the sentence before the bold word or the word you don't know the meaning to, and then the couple of sentences afterwards. And typically, there will be something that pinpoints what it means or explains what it means. So, for monopoly, and I'm going to get my highlighter out here. For monopoly, let's read So right here, which would have given the East India Company a monopoly on the American colony's tea market? The act was meant to enable the British company to sell its tea more cheaply than any competitors could. The American colonists feared that this special advantage would result in, and here it is, the company's singular control of tea sales. So they would have total control of tea sales. Okay. Typically, within a couple sentences of that word, there will be something that will kind of help give an explanation of what it means. So, people were fearful of this monopoly, and what a monopoly is singular control. In this case, over tea sales, but monopoly would mean total control over an industry. Okay, so now let's tackle tariffs. Before the act, the company had to pay taxes when the tea arrived in England from India, and then additional tariffs when the tea reached America. We don't even have to read any more. The company had to pay taxes when the tea arrived, and then additional tariffs once it reached America. So it kind of tells you that tariffs is just another way of saying taxes. Okay? So again, context clues are just rather than coming across a word and saying, gosh, I have no idea what that means, I'm just going to guess. Look at those couple of sentences around it, and not every time, but many times, it will tell you what that term means if you follow your context clues. So let's go down here. What is the meaning of the word monopoly? We highlighted singular control of the tea sales. So A, the ability to sell goods and services. I don't think that matches. Complete power over a supply or trade. That sounds pretty good, but let's get in the habit of reading all the options. C, a law or policy. I'm going to say no. And then D, an unfavorable position. I think this one's fairly obvious after we put our highlight up in the paragraph. It means complete power or control over a supply or trade. Number 2, what's the meaning of the word tariffs as used in this passage? Remember, we figured that tariffs is just another word for taxes. So let's see which one is closest to that. A, charges or fees on imports and exports. Imports means bringing something into a country, and exports meaning shipping it out of a country. But fees or charges definitely is in line with taxes. But let's continue to read on. But A looks like it's very likely that could be it. B, products to be sold in another country. C, goods and services offered for trade. Or D, just the costs of goods and services. Remember, tariffs we thought meant taxes, and I think the best explanation of taxes would be charges or fees. Okay? A little bit more reading here. We have, actually, it's 2 paragraphs, 1 bold word in each paragraph. So I'm going to read all of those, and then we'll go back and see if we can't find those context clues. So, invented in 1448, Johann Gutenberg's printing press is often credited with being the first press in Europe with movable type. The press used small blocks carved with individual letters of the alphabet. Gutenberg could arrange and rearrange these blocks into almost infinite combinations to make any word, sentence, or passage that was desired. Once a page was printed, the same blocks could be reconfigured to create the next page. I'm actually going to stop, and this is just because I know that number 3 is what is the meaning of reconfigured. So I'm just going to stop. Here's the actual question, though. What is the meaning of the word reconfigured? Here are our options, and let's go back up top and see if we can't find some context clues. Okay, so let's start a sentence or two before this bold word and see what we have. So the press used small blocks carved with individual letters of the alphabet. Gutenberg could arrange and rearrange these blocks into almost infinite combinations. Once a page was printed, the same blocks could be reconfigured. I'm going to guess that reconfigured is just another way of saying arranged and rearranged. Okay? Reconfigured those blocks, and if you don't know what that means, earlier in this paragraph, it kind of explained it for you. Arrange and rearrange those blocks in order to use that printing press. Okay, so let's go down to 3. Which word would be most similar to arrange and rearrange? Is it reordered, remade, erased, or duplicated? And I believe reordered matches right up with arrange, rearrange, reordered. Those are all kind of the same type of word or same meaning, and all of those mean reconfigured. Okay, now let's finish up with question 4, which is what is the meaning of the word dissemination? Dissemination is up here. Gutenberg's printing press, which allowed for dissemination of printed materials, helped lead to widespread changes in European society. Previously, few people had access to books. Each book had to be carefully copied by hand in an expensive and time-consuming process. With the printing press, books could quickly be produced in large numbers, reducing their price and allowing them to be distributed to a greater number of people. More books meant more people could learn to read and write, ultimately leading to a more literate public. All these changes are thought to have facilitated the rise of the Renaissance in Europe. So dissemination, let's go back up there near this word and read around it. Gutenberg's printing press, which allowed for the dissemination of printed materials, helped lead to widespread changes. I think widespread helps us to figure out what disseminate means. But if you actually read a little bit further, and I'm not going to read this whole paragraph to you again, but another context clue that maybe you would have it kind of helped you figure this one out could be distributed to a greater number of people. So if you come across a word you don't know, there's a good chance that there's a clue in each paragraph. And sometimes, as in this case, there might be a couple. widespread, distributed to a greater number of people, all point back to the meaning of dissemination. And does dissemination mean dismissal, dominance, spread, or enjoyment? We said above that one of the words that came to mind was widespread. And if that widespread and spread are very similar, so I'm going to go with the word spread. One more strategy I'd like to throw out there before I end this video that you can do. Okay, take whatever your answer is, especially if it's giving you a one-word answer selection. Take that specific word and plug it in and see if that sentence still makes sense. So in this case, what is the meaning of dissemination? We said the answer was spread, but if I want to check that out, I can take that word spread and plug it in for dissemination up here. Okay, so instead of saying dissemination, I'm going to say spread, and I'm writing with my mouse here, so it's probably not going to look very good. Oh goodness, spread, that's the best I can do. Gutenberg's printing press, which allowed for the spread of printed materials, helped lead to widespread changes in European society. That makes total sense. Spread can be plugged in right in for dissemination. It makes sense. And that is a good strategy for finding out if it is the correct meaning of that word. Hope this makes sense, everybody. Have a great day.